At 76, Marjorie was used to aches and pains. A stiff back in the morning, knees that creaked on the stairs. Those didn't scare her. What did, though, was something she never spoke of. Constipation. It was the weight she carried in silence, not just in her belly, but in her days. A heaviness that made her slower, more tired, and above all, ashamed. She didn't tell her daughter, she didn't mention it at church, she just pushed through, pushed harder, and then pushed again the next day, hoping that something would change. Every morning started the same: warm tea, a quiet sigh, and a long sit in the bathroom that ended with nothing but frustration. Some days she felt bloated by noon, other days she skipped meals because the pressure in her belly made her feel full when she wasn't. She told herself it was just aging, that this was part of growing older, like wrinkles or gray hair, something to endure. But then, one morning, something broke. She stood up too quickly from the toilet, dizzy from strain, and slipped. The fall wasn't hard, but the embarrassment was. She sat on the cold tile, shaking, not from pain, but from the truth. She wasn't managing this anymore. It was managing her. Her daughter insisted she see a doctor. The visit was quick. The doctor listened carefully, asked gentle questions, then nodded as if she'd heard this all before. Because of course she had. "You're not alone, Marjorie," the doctor said kindly. "This happens to a lot of people your age, but that doesn't mean it's normal." Marjorie stared at her hands. "I don't want to live like this," she said. "You don't have to," the doctor replied. "The answer isn't more pills, it's what you put on your plate." She handed Marjorie a list, not of medications, but of foods. "Your gut isn't broken," she said. "It's just waiting to be nourished." Marjorie looked down at the words. Green leafy vegetables, sweet potatoes, seeds, prunes, whole grains, yogurt, water-rich soups, and fruit juice. Simple, ordinary, familiar. Yet they felt like tiny promises on paper. That night, Marjorie sat at her kitchen table in silence. The fridge hummed behind her. Her tea had gone cold. She stared at the list again. Was it really that simple? She didn't know, but something in her shifted. She folded the list, slipped it into her cookbook, and whispered, "I'm ready." The next morning, she did something different. Instead of toast and tea, she peeled a ripe banana. She hadn't eaten fruit for breakfast in years, afraid it would upset her stomach. But this time, she chewed slowly, thoughtfully, almost like a prayer. Later that day, she made a pot of soup with soft vegetables and broth. No salt, just warmth. She didn't finish the bowl, but she felt good making it. For the first time in weeks, she went to bed without the tightness in her belly. It wasn't a miracle, nothing changed overnight, but it was the beginning. And beginnings, Marjorie had learned, often come quietly, like a whisper from your body, like a kindness you didn't know you needed, like a bowl of soup that says, "I'm here to help." Chapter 1. The Quiet Power of Fiber. Marjorie stood in front of her pantry the next morning, list in hand. It was time. No more toast with jam, no more crackers for lunch. Those had filled her stomach, but left her gut silent. She needed food that spoke to her body, and according to the list, fiber was the place to begin. Her first stop was the market. She filled her basket with things she hadn't bought in years. A bundle of leafy green mustard greens, a ripe yellow banana, a small bag of steel-cut oats, a pound of black beans, 3 sweet potatoes with dirt still on them. She came home and laid them all on the counter like tools for healing. That afternoon, she made a simple soup. Just greens, garlic, and water. The scent reminded her of her mother, who always said, "Kandra sach bon, sach long." Soup clears more than your stomach. She sipped slowly, letting it warm her from the inside. Her belly didn't feel full, it felt alive. The next morning, she stirred oats into a pot, added a spoonful of plain yogurt, and sliced half a banana on top. It was creamy, filling, and comforting. That evening, she mashed 1 boiled sweet potato with a dash of cinnamon and ate it with a smile. The texture soothed her. It reminded her of autumn days when her husband used to roast them on the fire. Within days, her body responded. She didn't wake up bloated, she started going to the bathroom without effort. No more sitting for 20 minutes and walking away disappointed. It wasn't dramatic, it was gentle, just like the food itself. The biggest surprise? She felt lighter, not thinner, though she didn't mind that, but freer, as if something inside her was finally letting go. One evening, after finishing a bowl of bean and spinach soup, she looked out the window and whispered, "Thank you." She didn't know if she meant the food, the body, or the second chance. Maybe all three. Chapter 2. Bowls of Warmth. Vegetables that heal. There was something about soup that always felt like a soft hand on the shoulder. That's what Marjorie thought as she stood over her stove, watching bright green leaves of Malabar spinach, montu, dance gently in the simmering broth. She dropped in a few peeled shrimp, added a pinch of salt, and let the aroma fill her kitchen. She hadn't made this soup in years. But as the scent rose, it carried memories with it. Her mother used to make it every summer when the heat was unbearable and everyone's stomachs turned sluggish. "Con monto madruo," she would say, ladling the steaming green liquid into bowls with chipped edges. Back then, Marjorie never questioned it. Now at 76, she understood. She sat down with her bowl. The greens were soft, the broth light, the shrimp delicate. Each spoonful felt like it slid through her throat and into her belly with purpose. She hadn't felt that way with food in a long time, safe. That same week, she made a big pot of vegetable soup. Carrots, celery, sweet corn, and just enough potato to give it body. She ate a small bowl at lunch, another for dinner. She stored the rest in glass jars, feeling proud of herself each time she opened the fridge and saw nourishment lined up like little helpers. She added black bean soup to her rotation, a recipe from a neighbor with soft garlic and slow-cooked onions. It was rich, hearty, grounding. After each bowl, she felt less bloated, less tight. Her stomach didn't fight her anymore. It seemed to breathe again. It wasn't just about digestion anymore, it was about care. These soups weren't fancy, they weren't diet food, they were healing for her gut, yes, but also for her spirit. One rainy afternoon, she invited her neighbor Ruth over for a bowl of pain montois. "This reminds me of home," Ruth said, spoon in hand. "Not just the place, but the feeling." Marjorie smiled. "That's why I make it." After a few weeks of warm, brothy meals, something surprising happened. Marjorie stopped checking the calendar for bathroom days. She no longer feared that familiar pressure or heaviness. She was going every day, naturally, softly, quietly, just like her food. She wrote in her journal that night, "Water in food is different than water in a glass. It stays, it soothes, it helps me let go." And for the first time in years, she truly meant it. Chapter 3. Sweet Roots, the gentle strength of sweet potatoes. It was the color that drew her in. At the corner of the farmer's market, a small basket of sweet potatoes sat basking in the autumn sun. Deep orange, still dusty from the soil, earthy, real. Marjorie picked one up and smiled. She hadn't cooked sweet potatoes in a long time, not since her husband Harold passed. He used to roast them whole in the oven, skin crackling, scent filling every corner of the house. "We don't need dessert," he'd say. "We have these." That afternoon, she rinsed one gently and placed it in a small pot of boiling water. No sugar, no butter, just steam and patience. When it was soft enough, she peeled it with her fingers, let it cool slightly, and took a bite. Warm, soft, naturally sweet. It settled into her body like a whisper. Not heavy, not loud, just present. Her stomach didn't rebel. There was no discomfort, just comfort. She began eating one small sweet potato every other afternoon, sometimes mashed with a sprinkle of cinnamon, sometimes sliced and roasted with a dash of olive oil, sometimes plain, still warm, like Harold would have liked. And each time, her body said yes. The science made sense, she'd read it. Sweet potatoes were rich in fiber and water, a gentle combination that helped her bowels move without stress or strain. They also contained antioxidants, vitamin C, and magnesium, all of which supported her aging digestive system in quiet, powerful ways. But what truly made the difference was how they made her feel: calm, nourished, balanced. No more sudden bloating, no more cramps, no more dread each morning. Instead, there was a quiet rhythm returning to her days. One morning, she slipped on her walking shoes and went outside before breakfast. Just a loop around the block. The sun was gentle, the leaves golden, and her body felt light. Not because she'd lost weight, but because she was no longer carrying the weight of discomfort. She returned home, sliced a cooked sweet potato, and added a spoonful of plain yogurt on top. It was simple, and it was healing. That evening, she wrote in her journal, "The root of the problem was solved by a root." Who knew? Chapter 4. The Forgotten Fruit, Prunes and the Past. Marjorie hesitated in the dried fruit aisle. She wasn't sure why she'd stopped. Maybe it was the shape of the bag, or maybe it was the word printed in soft gold letters, prunes. She hadn't touched them in decades. Her grandmother used to keep a jar on the counter, always offering them with tea, always swearing by their powers. Back then, Marjorie wrinkled her nose at them. "They're for old people," she'd said. Now she held the bag with both hands and whispered, "Well, I guess I'm there." She chuckled softly, then dropped it in her basket. That afternoon, she ate 3. She didn't expect much, just curiosity, maybe nostalgia. But the sweetness surprised her. It wasn't artificial or cloying, it was soft, deep, almost floral. She poured herself some warm water, sat by the window, and chewed slowly. The moment felt almost ceremonial. By morning, something had shifted. Her body moved more easily. There was no hesitation, no resistance, no tension. It was like her gut had been given permission to breathe. She kept it simple. 3, 4 prunes after lunch, sometimes after dinner. Never more. It became a ritual, a moment of quiet she looked forward to. One day, while flipping through an old photo album, she found a picture of her childhood friend, Linda. They used to walk home from school together, sharing secrets and stolen snacks. One day, Linda brought a little paper bag filled with prunes. "Try one," she'd said. "They're magic." Marjorie laughed back then, but now she understood. She called Linda that afternoon. They hadn't spoken in years, but Linda's voice was the same. "I eat them every day," Linda said when Marjorie mentioned the prunes. "They're the only thing that's never failed me." Marjorie smiled. "I should have listened sooner." It wasn't just about digestion anymore. It was about trusting what's old, what's simple, what stood the test of time. Prunes weren't trendy, they weren't new, but they worked. And sometimes, that's more than enough. That evening, Marjorie wrote in her journal, "I used to avoid them because they reminded me of age. Now I welcome them because they remind me of wisdom." Chapter 5. Tiny Seeds, Big Impact. Discovering chia and yogurt. The package was small, almost too small to notice. Tucked between the nuts and dried fruit, it read simply, "Chia seeds, rich in fiber and omega-3. Marjorie tilted the bag in her hands. The seeds were tiny, like specks of dust, black and gray and hardly intimidating. But something about it intrigued her. She had heard the name before. Her neighbor Ruth had mentioned them once while sipping tea. "Just a spoonful in water, and my stomach feels happy." Happy. That's what she wanted. She added the bag to her cart. The next morning, she filled a glass with water and stirred in a spoonful of chia seeds. She left it on the counter and went to do her morning stretch. When she returned, the water had thickened. The seeds had swelled, forming a jelly-like texture that glistened in the sunlight. It didn't look appetizing, but it didn't look scary either. She took a sip. It was bland, but not unpleasant, and her body welcomed it. For days, she repeated the routine. A glass of chia water in the morning, before breakfast. Nothing changed drastically, but something subtle began to shift. Her gut felt calm. Her belly, once tight and heavy after meals, now felt quiet. She wasn't rushing to the bathroom, but she wasn't dreading it either. There was, finally, ease. One morning, she added a spoonful of chia seeds to a bowl of plain, unsweetened yogurt. She topped it with slices of banana and a sprinkle of oats. The texture surprised her, thick, creamy, slightly chewy, but it was satisfying in a new kind of way. a way that made her feel cared for. She began experimenting. Yogurt with chia and strawberries for breakfast. Yogurt with cinnamon and prunes as a snack. Chia pudding made the night before soft and cool in the afternoon sun. There was something deeply comforting about these foods. They were simple, nourishing, gentle on the body. But more than that, they felt like companions. Tiny seeds doing big work. Creamy yogurt soothing her from the inside out. And unlike medicine, there were no side effects. No cramps, no urgency, no shame, just quiet progress. One afternoon, she met Ruth at the community center. Ruth looked at her, eyes wide. "You look lighter, Marjorie." Marjorie smiled. "I feel it." They sat together, eating chia pudding from small jars like teenagers sharing a secret. "This," Marjorie said, "is the kind of medicine I wish doctors talked more about." Ruth nodded. "It's the kind that listens." That night, Marjorie opened her journal and wrote, "Sometimes healing doesn't come in pills. Sometimes it's in seeds and spoons. And sometimes that's more than enough." Chapter 6, From Heavy to Healed, Living Light Again. Marjorie no longer counted days between bowel movements, and she didn't need to. What had once been unpredictable and painful had now become effortless, gentle, regular. But more than that, she felt free. Her routine had become something sacred. A glass of chia water in the morning, a bowl of oatmeal with yogurt and banana, a light lunch with vegetable soup or leafy greens, a sweet potato in the afternoon, a warm dish of black beans or soft tofu in the evening, a few prunes for dessert, herbal tea before bed. Nothing extreme, nothing restrictive, just food, real food, consistent, healing. She no longer feared the scale, or her reflection, or the way her pants fit, because it wasn't about weight. It was about lightness, in her belly, in her mind, in her days. One morning, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing her hair. She caught a glimpse of herself. Calm, soft-eyed, standing straight, and she smiled. Not because she looked younger, but because she felt like herself again. Later that week, she found a small notebook in her kitchen drawer and began writing her own little digestive diary. Not about symptoms, but about gratitude. Each day, she wrote one small thing her body had done right. I went to the bathroom without effort. I enjoyed my soup without bloating. I felt hungry, I ate, I felt satisfied. They were tiny victories, but they were her. She realized something powerful. Healing hadn't come from force, not from pushing harder or trying more pills. It had come from listening, from choosing foods that honored her age, her rhythm, her softness, from releasing shame and embracing kindness. One Sunday, her granddaughter Lily came over for lunch. Marjorie served chia pudding with yogurt and stewed prunes. Lily took one bite and smiled. "Grandma, this is delicious." Marjorie grinned. "And it's medicine, but the kind that doesn't taste like it." They laughed together. 2 generations eating the same food for different reasons, but with the same joy. That night, Marjorie wrote in her journal, "My body doesn't need fixing. It just needs remembering. And food reminds it how to feel good again." Closing. Thank you for listening. Dear friends, thank you for walking with me through Marjorie's story. Her journey may be fictional, but her struggles are very real. If you've ever battled constipation, bloating, or that heavy feeling that seems to follow you into every day, know this: you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. Your body might just need a little reminder, a little kindness, a little fiber, a little water, a little time. Whether it's chia seeds, a bowl of warm soup, a few prunes after lunch, or a sweet potato in the afternoon, healing can begin on your plate. So if this story touched you, please leave a comment below. Tell us what resonated with you. Like this video if it brought you comfort or clarity. And don't forget to subscribe. We have more stories, more science, and more gentle inspiration to come. Because every body deserves to feel light again, and yours is no exception. See you in the next video. Until then, stay kind to your gut and kind to yourself.